Hey, friends, what's up? It's Tuesday night. God, we're off to a good start. It's Tuesday night. This is the baseline view. Missouri plays basketball tonight, which is why we are here. Mizzou and Georgia coming up in 58 minutes on the SEC network. I found the early games generally actually tip off on time. So it should be right about 6 o'clock tonight. Mizzou back in action. Did manage to get to Athens, Georgia. I'm not sure how, to be quite honest with you, because it has been absolutely miserable here in Columbia for about 4 days now. It was I think about 10:30 this morning. The temperature rose above zero for the first time in 3.5 days. It was incredible. I think at one point today we hit double digits, got up to 10. So I hope that you all are in better places, or at least warmer places. I shoveled our house out with the help of my son from the apocalypse just in time for snow to arrive tomorrow morning. But Missouri did drive or bus to Kansas City last night, flew from Kansas City to Atlanta, got to Athens, I want to say about 10:30 last night, according to the tweets, and we'll play Georgia tonight. Not on that plane, Jeremiah Tillman. Second straight game, I should say, that he is missing. He is back home with family in East St. Louis. There was a death in his family. At some point last week, he missed the Arkansas game on Saturday, missing this game tonight. I don't want to speculate. I don't know. He may be back this weekend, may not. But Missouri, certainly without him tonight against a team that, as you'll hear in a few minutes when we talk to Anthony Dasher from UGA Sports, Tillman might have had a big night against, but he's not going to have a big night. He's not going to have any night. Missouri playing without him. The simple fact of the matter is Missouri should win this game with or without Jeremiah Tillman. If one player means you can't go beat this team, then this program isn't where Conzo Martin wants it to be. It isn't where they think it is. It isn't where you want it to be. They lose tonight. Look, I'll start entertaining some of the doomsday scenarios. This is, in my opinion, a must-win game. This is a must-win week. They've got to go 2-0, to be quite honest. It's at Georgia. It's at South Carolina. They lose either of these games, the whole top four seed thing that we've been talking about all season long, and I'm just talking about SEC here. I'm not even talking NCAA. We can get to that, but I'm just talking top four in the SEC. That's probably off the table with a loss in either one of these games this week. These are bottom half of the league, maybe bottom third of the league teams. These are teams you go beat if you're Missouri, if you're an NCAA tournament lock, if you're a team that thinks you're going to win a game or two in the dance. This is a game you win. I don't really know how much more blunt to be about it. This is not a game that Missouri can't afford to or should lose. Appreciate a lot of you guys being here at the start and want to make sure to roll through and acknowledge some of your comments. And I always like to put Greg Shackelford there because his YouTube avatar is a picture with me taken at Jerry Lawler's place in Memphis when we're all there for the Liberty Bowl. So, Greg, that is always going to get up there. Shannon, and that, I guess, IRL stands for in real life. So in real life, you are Shannon. So welcome. Appreciate it. Haven't seen you on some of our previous shows. So if you're new, appreciate it. We like the new people. We like the people who are always here. Pocket Watch, always kind to come over from the Auburn side of things and hang out with us. He's like a quasi-Missouri fan, Pocket Watch. Maybe we can say Missouri's like your adopted team, right? You might root for him, except when they play Auburn. Jay Tate sent him over our way. I've appreciated having Pocket Watch here all through football and basketball season. And, Mark says the guys got to knock down shoots tonight. I agree, man. Got to make the shoots, and I assume that should be shots. But, hey, I get trouble for typos all the time, so I can take it. And I can dish it out a little bit. But, yeah, Missouri's got to make some shots. Georgia plays terrible defense. They're giving up like 77 points a game in a league where really there's a lot of teams that have trouble scoring and a lot of teams that have trouble making shots. How bad is Georgia on defense? They gave up 115 to Alabama on Saturday in 40 minutes. That's almost 3 points a minute, guys. I know you probably aren't math majors, but luckily I'm really good at math, so I can figure that out. That is almost 3 points for every minute played. Missouri won a game earlier this year, won a game when they scored 54. Alabama averaged 57.5 per half against Georgia. And look, I know Alabama's really good and capable of getting hot and capable of putting some points on anybody, but I think Georgia scored like in the they scored 65 against Missouri. They scored 61 against Oklahoma. They scored 115 against Georgia. This is not a great Georgia team. Pocket Watch points out that Mizzou can get to Athens, but Mississippi State can't get to Auburn. So there's a couple things here. First of all, like, Missouri might not be the best at a lot of things in the SEC, but those of us who live in Missouri are so much better at handling weather than the rest of the people in the SEC. See, we got, I don't know, 5-6 inches of snow out there right now. Like I said, it's been 0 degrees for 3 days. Like, this is February. This happens. We're used to this. This is why a lot of Missouri fans would have loved a spring football season, because Florida and Georgia and all these people who think 39 degrees and, like, there might be a drop of freezing rain, like that's the apocalypse and we got to shut society down when that happens. Nah, that's all right. We're used to that here. But see, here's the thing about Missouri that a lot of the SEC probably doesn't experience. And this is my least favorite thing about Missouri. We get 0 degrees and 6 inches of snow in the winter. But we also get 106 and your clothes stick to you when you walk out to get the mail in the summer. Like, we get the worst of both. At least, like, look, if you live in Alabama, if you live in Georgia, whatever, yeah, I've been to those places. I know it gets hot. But you don't get 3 degrees. You don't get ice. You don't get snow. Not very often. I understand you've seen snow. You think like this, there's like a powdery white dusting and nobody can go outside of their houses for a week. I get that. And if you live in, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas, and I lived in the Dakotas for a while, so I know this. You get the snow. I actually rode to work on a snowmobile one time in South Dakota. And you get some hellacious, terrible winters. But, like, you can walk 18 holes of golf if you live in those places in June. It's not 192-degree heat index where, like, you have to put flip-flops on because if you were to walk on the bare pavement, the bottoms of your feet would burn off. We get that all here. So, Missouri can do weather. A snowstorm is not keeping the Missouri basketball team at home. The SEC, however, did change a bunch of games this week, and I'm going to put the SEC schedule rolling across the bottom of the screen here because the truth is I don't really know it at this point. I know Missouri and Georgia play tonight, and Florida and Arkansas play tonight. Those games are both at 6 o'clock. Everything else has, like, moved all around. Missouri and Georgia was originally supposed to be starting at 5:30. Florida and Arkansas didn't change. There was going to be, I think, a late game tonight. There's not a late game. There's now 2 games on Wednesday. There's a 2 o'clock and 2 4 o'clock games on Thursday. And Greg Sankey came out and said, hey, we still feel like maybe we can get all these games in. And so they're going to start doing stuff like this to get all these games in. They're going to start doing things like, Alabama and A&M, you're going to play at 2 o'clock on Thursday. So I think it's a good sign if you want Missouri to make up that LSU and that Vanderbilt game. But also there's going to be some coaches that are finding themselves playing 2 games in 3 days, 3 games in 5 days, things like that to get this all in before the SEC tournament, which, speaking of the SEC tournament, saw a tweet from Cecil Hurt. He covers Alabama and has, like, maybe since I was born. Cecil's covered the Tide forever. Quote, Nate Oates on the SEC tournament. I have not heard any discussion from the SEC office, any of our administrators, or any of the other coaches about not having a tournament. That means a conference tournament. So we fully expect at this point the league tournament's going to happen. I would expect everybody's going to go and play and probably do their best to win as many games as possible. I've been pretty outspoken. I wouldn't do that if I was Missouri, although Missouri's getting closer to playing itself into a place where maybe it's going to need a little bit in that tournament. And we'll talk about that as we go on. But Yeah, Mark says Kansas City's been bad. Look, I got friends in Kansas City, friends in St. Louis. The whole state's been bad this week, no question. Greg is waiting for a plane in Baltimore. I like Baltimore, Greg. It's a good town, man. I hope you had some crab while you were out there. No, it gets kind of a bad rap, but I enjoy Baltimore. But yeah, plain Wi-Fi holding up to watch the game. Hope you get to. Jeff Goodson joining us. Appreciate it, and wants to know if Torrence Watson is going to break out tonight. He broke out a little bit against Arkansas on Saturday. Made, I think, 3 threes and played 25-ish minutes. Now, there were some reasons for that, right? Javon Pickett, we guess he was hurt. This is kind of an interesting thing to me, and I brought it up on Monday. So Javon played 18 minutes in the Ole Miss game. And then he only played 8 against Arkansas. But he was in there for the most important defensive possession of the game. So is he hurt? Because if he's hurt, I don't want him in on that possession. And if he's hurt, he shouldn't have played 18 minutes on Wednesday and probably shouldn't have played 8 minutes on Saturday. You probably should rest the guy and get him healthy. This is something I've noticed with Konzo over the last 2 or 3 years. And look, in general, coaches don't make medical decisions, right? They listen to the doctors, and the team doctor's going to say, hey, this guy can play or he can't play. But the second that team doctor says he can play, look, Konzo Martin grew up in East St. Louis. He got knees that probably shouldn't have let him play college basketball. He had cancer. Like, dude's had some stuff, right? So a sprained ankle to Konzo Martin doesn't seem like a big deal. It's like, I don't know. Can you walk? Cool. Can you run? Good deal. Doctor said you can play? You can play. But I've seen some injuries linger on Missouri in the last couple of years. Happened with Mark Smith with a foot injury last year. Happened with Tillman a little bit. And so my concern with Pickett is, what if you're trotting him out there for, even if it's only 8 to 15 minutes, but what if you're trotting him out there and maybe it's not quite healthy? Like, you're not making it worse, but you're not making it better. And what if you just gave Javon 3 games and said, sit, you're not playing, we're going to go try to win without you, and if we don't, we don't, but we're going to need you for the Florida game, for LSU, for the SEC tournament, for the NCAA tournament. I hope they're not getting in a situation where this thing's going to linger, and it's still going to be a problem for those games I just talked about. But so Pickett didn't play a lot. Xavier Pinson was in foul trouble. Mark Smith obviously was 0 for 8. Now, he still played 28 minutes, but the game went overtime. They needed bodies. They didn't have Tillman. Kobe Brown was cramping up. So Torrence played 25 minutes. I think Parker Brown played 26. Is that going to be replicated? I don't think they're going to play that many. But, like, I think Torrence earned more minutes. I mean, if he can go out there and just make 3 threes a game, you'll take that. You're not asking him to be a shutdown defender. You're not asking him to play 30 minutes. Give me 15, 20 minutes, make 3 threes, maybe take some of that pressure off Mark and Drew and X, and maybe that frees up Mark Smith a little bit. So I don't think it would be a bad thing to be playing Torrence Watson, certainly. Case says it's disaster if they lose, and yeah, I agree. It is certainly borderline disaster, I think. I mean, again, this is a game you can't lose. If you do lose it, we do have some news, by the way. Offensive lineman Jack Buford is transferring. We'll get to that in a minute. But I do want to finish talking basketball. They need to win this game, because if they don't, they're 6-6 in the league. You can forget about top 4. Top 4 is not happening. You lose this game. But also, that's 3 in a row. And now you're starting to slide. I think Missouri probably slid down to a 5 seed after Saturday's loss. You lose this one, you're starting to slide a little bit more. Now, they're not in danger of missing the tournament or anything unless the wheels fall off. But if they lose this one, the wheels might fall off. I don't want to be too reactionary, but I do think it's at least something we need to, they need to win this game, without question. Now, here's what I was just talking about. Price is asking about Jack Buford transferring, and yeah, so Jack Buford has entered the transfer portal. I'll just read you his statement from Twitter. I'd like to start off by saying this decision was not easy by any means, but I have to do what's best for me and my family. I'd first like to thank my parents and Coach Reed for always helping me move in the right direction. I would truly, truly like to thank the University of Missouri for everything from the teachers to the tutors, as well as all my coaches. I want to give a special thanks to coaches Brad Davis and Barry Odom for giving me the opportunity to come here and be a successful student athlete. I'd also like to say thank you to Coach Drink and Coach Johnson for coaching me and guiding me. I've learned so much from all of these coaches that have helped make me the student athlete I am today. Also want to give a special shout out to my mentor, LaDamian Washington, for his always positive vibes and wisdom. Last but not least, I want to thank my teammates and brothers. Thank you for accepting me and making me a part of the Mizzou family. It means a lot. Black and gold will always be a part of me. Today, I will be entering the transfer portal. Any college coaches interested, please contact my high school coach, Carl Reed. Thank you, and God bless. Look, I'm not shocked that Jack Buford is transferring. He didn't play his first year, which is not a surprise for an offensive lineman. Most of them redshirt. But then he opted out before last season. And at the time he did it, it was like the last week of fall camp. So that was pretty indicative to me that he opted out largely because he probably wasn't going to play a lot. And he didn't play a lot. Now, the last couple games of the year, he got in for a few snaps, some special teams, played fullback a couple times, I think, when they were down to like 50 dudes. And pretty much if you could make the trip, you were playing. But I can't say that shocks me on Buford. This is how an SEC program operates, and Eli Drinkwitz is operating one. And Missouri fans aren't really used to it. But guys that don't play in their first 2 years, they're largely going to move on, especially guys that weren't recruited by Drinkwitz and, probably look at this and say, yeah, I don't love my chances here of ever really being a starter. So doesn't shock me that Buford is transferring. It doesn't say anything about the kid as a player, person, whatever. I honestly, I think I talked to him one time. He seems like a good kid. But no, it doesn't shock me that he is transferring. I know the in-state guys, especially the highly ranked guys, people are always a little more disappointed when that happens. But, hey, it does happen. So that's the football part. This is a basketball show. Mizzou and Georgia tip off in 41 minutes. SEC Network. Severe Wheeler, Tumani Kamara. Those are the guys you need to watch for UGA. Third year under Tom Crean. It hasn't been real good. We talked to our friend Anthony Dasher about that. I'm going to play that interview. We'll come back. It's about 15 minutes long. We'll come back. More of your comments and questions. We'll get to Mitchell 40, and we'll lead you right up to tip-off. Anthony Dasher, UGAsports.com. Hopefully not dealing with 6 inches of snow and sub-zero temperatures like you would be if you chose to come to Columbia for this game.
No, exactly. No, not dealing any kind of weather like that. Just actually, we're seeing the sun for the first time, I think, a month. I don't know, but it's nothing near what you guys have up there.
Yeah, if you guys need somebody else on staff, let me know. I'm looking to relocate south sometime soon. But Missouri I think they drove to Kansas City and got out of town, which I wasn't sure they were going to without Jeremiah Tillman, obviously. Georgia had been playing a little better and then gave up 612 points, I think, was the number to Alabama on Saturday. Where's this? I mean, just kind of big picture, where's this Georgia team at right now?
I think that's a good question. People have been asking that about this squad all season long. Yeah, they had been playing pretty well for their standards. They won 3 straight games. Beat Ole Miss again, which has been the strangest thing. Ole Miss has a pretty decent little team, and but Ole Miss can't seem to find a way to beat the Bulldogs. But Georgia's not a good. I just preface this whole thing by saying Georgia's not a good shooting team. In the 3 games that they won, back to back, here last couple of weeks ago, they shot 45-46% from 3, and that opened everything up. But once they go in the tank, We saw that against Alabama. They just don't play well against the upper echelon teams, again, other than, maybe Ole Miss, because every time they played about it, it's been decent. I mean, they've laid an egg.
So I want to get a little more specific about this team in this matchup in a couple minutes. But overall, why hasn't Tom Crean worked there at this point? Because he still hasn't gotten to Mark Fox's worst season in his
No,
3 years.
no, not at all. I mean, I don't have wish I had the numbers in front of it. Mark Fox's record. I maybe back up. Tom Crean's already lost like about a third of the SEC games that Mark Fox lost, and Mark Fox had 9 years in Crean's 3 seasons, not quite 3 seasons yet. But to me, it goes to recruiting. Yeah, Georgia got Anthony Edwards last year, but they have not received that bump that I think they were anticipating. You look at this roster this year, the 13 guys that are on, only 5 are from Georgia. And Georgia's a pretty strong state for basketball, obviously, as well as football. And of those 5 guys, one is a grad transfer from Virginia Tech and PJ Horn. The other is a walk-on in Jackson Etter, who's starting to play a little bit more minutes right now. But he has not really had success recruiting in-state, especially around the Atlanta area. That I think a lot of folks kind of thought he would. You would think he would have really kind of maybe tried to rely on some of the homegrown talent he has at his disposal, but so far that's not really panned out for him.
Kind of looking back and like, look, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. This is kind of my take from afar.
Yeah.
And you tell me if it's dumb, but firing Mark Fox is almost a situation where a program kind of has trouble accepting what it is and thinks, hey, we can do better than this. I mean, and now you look back, Mark Fox wasn't bad, man. Like maybe that wasn't the greatest plan in creation.
In a way, it would kind of remind me of the Mark Richt firing in that, what Mark Fox did at Georgia was really good. Georgia does not have a basketball history. Let's make that perfectly clear. I mean, but when you look, Crean was brought in to help them take that next step, maybe help them get to the NCAA tournament once every 3 or 4 years, something like that. But now, I mean, they're not going to make it this year unless there's some kind of miracle run. And with the players they're losing for this year's team, I don't see it happening in the next year, maybe the year after that. So I think that's the biggest thing with Coach Crean is they have not taken that next step. And you don't really see when they're going to do it.
Is he in any trouble, or is he good for a while?
I think he's at least good for next year. Georgia does have a new AD right now, Josh Brooks, who took over for Greg McGarry. So I don't see him coming in and cleaning house, so to speak, in his first year. But this is a Georgia team, though. I think when they have lost just been atrocious. I mean, they got killed by South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina is not a good basketball team.
They are not.
No. They got beat by about 30 points by the Gamecocks in Columbia. And then of course what Alabama did, just got rat raced out of Coleman Coliseum, and they were had an ugly defeat at Arkansas. So it's when they lose big. They don't play around. They really they can be impressive losers.
Yeah, this team kind of starts with Severe Wheeler, who I don't know. Is it fair? He doesn't score as much, but is it fair to say he's the closest thing this league has to Sharif Cooper at Auburn?
Maybe he's fast. I'll give him that. Turnovers have kind of plagued him, from time to time. He does kind of get out of control every once in a while because one, I think he's trying to do too much because he realizes that everything's on his shoulders as far as this team communicating on offense, and that's something that's really hampered him. And when Georgia's played well, they've been able to they cut, they move, they talk on the court and offensively, defensively. But when they don't, it's just 5 guys out there and not really any kind of playing any kind of plan. At least the way, my humble opinion, that's what gets them in trouble.
The other guy besides Wheeler really that kind of jumps out is Tumani Kamara, 13 points, almost 8 rebounds, about a block a game. Is he kind of what makes him go down low?
Kind of, but yeah, but that's something again they have not had all year long. As close as they have. This is not a big team. They've got a freshman this year's like 6'9". This is not a big physical squad whatsoever. This is a team that has to hustle, have to play hard, have to chase after loose balls, has to get deflections to be effective. And when they run against bigger teams, they have really, really struggled because they have gotten killed on the boards, especially on the offensive side in a lot of these contests this year. So
this is a game that it would seem like Jeremiah Tillman probably would have been a pretty big factor.
He would have scored 40. He would have scored 40 points in this one. I have no doubt.
So he's not playing for Missouri. And look, when they don't have him, they don't have a lot inside. I mean, I think they shot 32 threes against Arkansas because they didn't have much choice. But is this, even without him, it sounds like Missouri's best deal might be trying to get in the paint again.
And just run. I mean, Coach Crean, pointed that out yesterday. I mean, I forget how many, plays per second or something like that Missouri's able to get off. That's something that really concerns me. I mean, Alabama the other day just was like up and down, up and down, up and down, and Georgia could not get back defensively. could not get in transition, offensively, whatsoever, and they just couldn't keep up. And I suspect Missouri's going to look at that, probably looked at that tape. Hey, we can run just as fast as Alabama. Let's see what we can do against these Bulldogs, later tonight.
Yeah, because 2 weeks ago, I mean, Missouri beat Alabama at Alabama's own game, and then it's kind of fallen apart a little bit since then. But
still,
everybody I talk to about a game in the SEC, the first thing they say is, well, let's be clear. First of all, this team can't shoot outside of Alabama. Alabama's the only team that can shoot in this league, and somehow Georgia's still giving up like 77 points a game. Do they just play no defense?
At times, yeah. I mean, like I said, if they hustle and chase the ball and get deflections, communicate defensively, they're not bad. I mean, they have got some good with that. This is a team that did beat Cincinnati earlier. Cincinnati's got a decent squad. But since conference play is began, they just have not been able to show any kind of consistency. If they've had, I think, maybe 2 games we could say they played couple 2 halves. The rest of them, it's just been a matter of just not playing with their heads in the game. That's why Crean is getting a lot of criticism from a lot of Georgia fans right now, because this team is not playing with the kind of I think 2 half effort.
Yeah,
folks want to see.
We've seen a lot of that. So I know this is kind of a hard thing to assess because it changes from half to half and game to game. But to me, Missouri comes into this with everything to play for.
Oh, sure.
And should theoretically play pretty hard. I mean, where's Georgia at as far as the give a damn factor right now?
That's a good question. I mean, we'll find out a lot about that tonight. I mean, that Alabama game, I think it's pretty obvious they quit from about the 10-minute mark, left in the game. They just kind of packed it in. That's really the only way that a team can score 115 points in a college game if the other team just stops, carrying on what they're doing. And that's just kind of how it appeared to me in that instance. So yeah, Missouri has everything to play for, and the NCAA, spot in the tournament, I think, is obviously on the line for the Tigers. So I think they'll have plenty of motivation. Georgia, I got no clue.
Yeah. So Georgia's one of those teams that, like, look, they're not getting to the tournament unless they win the thing in Nashville. But we've been talking for a couple of weeks and we still don't have any answers. What do you expect? Do you think this SEC tournament is just, hey, play as normal and everybody's going to show up?
That's a really good question. I mean, going up there to Nashville with no fans and just I don't know. It's going to be hard for them to replicate what the tournament has done, I think, in previous years. And the teams, like Missouri, like Alabama, those are the ones who are going to have the most to play for in this one. But we'll see. I'm not really expecting a whole lot for the tournament this year from an excitement standpoint.
Well, and honestly, those are actually the teams that probably have the least to play for. I've said if I'm Missouri, I wouldn't go. I'd just say, we don't want to play this year. I mean, let Georgia or Kentucky go win the thing and get a spot in the NCAA tournament. We'll just take that large bid. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's what I'd do if I was a team that I was pretty sure I was in.
And I know there were some questions earlier today. I know some media has actually made that point. I think some of the Kentucky media made the point that will there even be a tournament, SEC tournament this year, and whether they need to have one. I mean, and you could really kind of question whether that is true and that is the case or not. So we'll see. I think it still is going to be one from what I understand, but I can certainly get where people say, hey, let's just kind of cash this one in and just move on to next year.
Yeah. Now I know you cover one of the schools that, hey, this whole little thing with the round ball is just a nice little interlude between the regular season and spring ball. But I mean, Kirby's team got a whole bunch of dudes back, and I assume goes into next year thinking, hey, national title or bust again.
It's next year. Things are setting up, very, very well. I mean, getting JT Daniels back at quarterback was huge. And you look on the defensive side to get a guy like Jordan Davis, who I think could be the best nose tackle in the conference. Big question for Georgia, though, is going to be the secondary. You're talking a lot of young kids. They lost three starters off that unit. Are going to have to place a true freshman back there unless they can get somebody through the transfer portal here in the next week or so. But every other position, they return every running back. They got 6 scholarship running backs. I don't know how they're going to make that work. This year they returned the entire receiving core. George Pickens found new life playing, with JT Daniels. Tight end, offensive line has a few questions, but again, Georgia's recruited so well there. I don't think that's going to be a huge concern, but it's going to be a matter of secondary. I mean, would Georgia try to play a little more aggressive on defense, try to get, cause more havoc with the quarterback, kind of take some pressure off that secondary. But yeah, this is a team this year I think is they're I'll go as far as say if they don't make the playoffs this year, in a lot of people's mind, it's going to be a failure, and that's kind of crazy to even suggest that, but that's kind of where Georgia is right now.
Well, nobody watching this cares about this, but one of the only guys that didn't come back is a Chiefs fan. I really want Azeez Ojulari to fall to Kansas City. That's my draft pick.
He's a good he's a really good player. He would help that team out, I think, a lot.
Yeah, well, Dash, appreciate it, man. I
Yep.
don't know. We got a couple hours to, I guess, try to get fired up for this one. It seems kind of tough.
Yes.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Good seeing you,
right,
guys.
thanks a lot, bud. All right, that's Anthony Dasher. The guys at UGA Sports do a great job. If you want to follow Georgia, definitely check out their site. They cover basketball, but they are one of the schools in the SEC where it's kind of like, yeah, that's a thing we do for a couple months in the winter. And again, for the Chiefs fans on here, familiarize yourself with Azeez Ojulari. He's probably not making it to the 31st pick, but I would sure like to see him wearing KC on his helmet next year. Anyway, 28 minutes till tip-off, and at 5:45, we're going to check in with Mitchell Forty, kind of get his thoughts on this game. He wrote the preview this morning on our site, and he will have your coverage during the game. So when this game does tip off, when this show ends at 5:59 or whatever, I'll sign off. He'll have you covered on the site for a couple hours. Then I will be back afterwards. Konzo's post game should be in the neighborhood of 8:15, 8:20. As soon as we get done with that, we will be live on the Burger Smokehouse Dance Class post game show. We'll take your calls. Look, I love that this game's at 6 o'clock. We've had a run of 8 o'clock weeknight games, and that means post game at 11. A, I hate that. B, Missouri's terrible at 8 o'clock on weeknights. They're 0-4 in that situation, 13-1 at any other time. So we'll see if that plays to form tonight. Want to get back to some of your all's comments before we do get into talking to Mitchell and the game and all that. Shannon says the polls are biased. Yes, they are. I mean, they're done by humans. They are inherently biased. How does Kansas, with 2 wins over a 2-14 Iowa State team, somehow put you in the rankings? And yet Kansas has 7 losses. Would love to have whooped the Jayhawks in KC. Well, I say first of all, be a little careful about what you wish for. Like, yeah, Missouri might beat Kansas this year, but I'm not sure it's a slam dunk. But, yeah, I did think it was a little weird that Kansas falls out of the rankings, then beats a terrible Iowa State team twice and jumps back in at number 23. Now, look, nobody really pays. The voters just look and go, oh, hey, Kansas won 2 games. Let's slide them back in. They were at like 27. They don't really care who they were against or what they look like. I mean, the top 25 polls are largely – I've said this before. I said this a lot during football season. When you cover a team, you just don't see that much outside of that team. Now, it's different in basketball because teams are playing every night of the week, and there are more chances to see games, obviously. It's not like in football where, hey, Saturday, your whole day is covering Missouri or covering Texas or whatever, and you don't see anything else. So it's a little different in basketball, but the polls are, they are what they are. Also, they're inherently, like, the biggest problem with polls, and why I've always thought they shouldn't start them till about week 7 in football, and they really shouldn't start them till at least conference play in basketball, because if you start high, like Kansas did, it's really, really hard to fall out. I mean, let's say you start the season at number 6, right? Well, if you go 0-2 in your first week, you're not getting dropped out of the poll. You're going to get dropped down to like 14. Where realistically, if you start unranked and you're 0-2, well, that's going to take you another 5 weeks to start getting votes. So everybody bases, what they do is they look at their poll from the week before and they say, well, I had this team here and they went 1-1 and some teams below them went 2-0, so I'm going to flip that. But it's not a great measure. But Missouri fans should actually like the polls this year because the polls think much more highly of Missouri than things like KenPom or the net ranking or things like that do. I mean, Missouri is 19th in the coaches poll, 20th in the AP, and they're somewhere down in the low 30s, maybe even in the 40s in the KenPom and net. So, but yes, polls are an imperfect science. But the good news about college basketball is none of those things mean anything come the second or third week in March. I mean, they all go away because, again, college basketball has one huge advantage over college football. And I know this is a novel concept, even though every sport except college football does it. playing games and winning games actually is a factor in winning a national title. Whereas in football, like, it kind of is, but really only a couple of them, So polls are kind of dumb, but they get people talking. Cam brings up a good point that I had talked about on the postgame show, actually on Saturday. Looking at the remaining schedule without a run in the SEC tournament, Mizzou probably won't have much of a way to improve their seeding. Can probably only hurt it with a bad loss. You're 100% right. I mean, Georgia's 98th in the net. Winning tonight's just what you're supposed to do. It's not going to help you a lot. Losing will hurt you, but it's not going to help you. South Carolina is 100 and something. It's not going to help you. Texas A&M is 137, I think. It's not going to help you. The Florida game to end the season can help you. You get LSU back. Ole Miss can help you. They're 55th. It's a quad 2 game because it's at home, but it can help. Losing to Ole Miss wouldn't kill you. Beating Ole Miss might bump you up a couple spots, not a couple seed lines, but like a couple spots on the S curve. But really, Missouri's got 5 regular season games left as of now. 3 of them can only hurt Missouri by playing them, and that is tonight, that is Saturday against South Carolina, and that is next, I think, Tuesday against Texas A&M. The last 2 games with Ole Miss and Florida can help you, and I may have a game flip-flop there. It may be Ole Miss before Florida, but either way, 3 of the 5 games really don't do anything for you. Now, if you get LSU back, that's a quad 1 game. That helps. But if you also get Vandy back, that one doesn't help you. So, you're talking 7 games, and 4 of them do absolutely nothing for you. Mizzou was the last 4 seed before losing to Arkansas on Saturday. I just don't see any way, and I may still have that graphic. Hang on, this may be the wrong thing. Yeah, it is the wrong thing. I thought I there it is. There's the seeding from Saturday. So you see down there in the bottom right corner, Missouri was the number 4 seed, basically. The 16th team by the S curve. Well, losing Saturday obviously knocks them down from that a little bit. Now, the Arkansas loss wasn't a bad loss. It's a quad 1 game. It doesn't kill you or anything. But, it is going to knock you down at least 1 spot there. So Missouri, we assume as of today, is no better than a 5 seed. And again, there just aren't that many chances to help that. Some of these other teams are going to be playing games that the weird thing about college basketball is it's actually better to lose to a good team than it is to beat a bad team in a lot of cases, in the way the selection committee has historically viewed it. So, Missouri's got 3 games that can only hurt them. This one, South Carolina, A&M. The only thing they can do is hurt. I mean, if you win, you're just supposed to win. You might tread water, but it's not going to help you. So I think we're looking at a team that's a 5 or a 6 seed if it goes the way we think it'll go the rest of the season. Now, look, you beat Florida, you beat Ole Miss, you beat LSU, like you win out, then, hey, yeah, maybe you can play your way back up to that 4 line. But I think you're probably going to have to win out. You lose another game, and I don't even think it matters who it's to, but you lose another regular season game, I don't really see a way Missouri can get into a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And, yeah, like Greg says, getting LSU back, the SEC tournament would be nice to get a couple wins. And the SEC tournament will be interesting because if Missouri's that top 4 seed, then they're going to be playing a team that will help them in their first game in the tournament. But if they slip down to like the 6 seed or even the 5 seed, then their opening game is against like a South Carolina, Georgia. You're better off not playing that game. I mean, it does nothing for you. So then game 2 would be, like an Arkansas and LSU, a Florida, somebody like that, and that is going to help you. So if you can do a little bit of winning there, it's not out of the question Missouri could get back into that top 4. I just think it would be a little bit difficult, to be honest. Grayson says need to take advantage of Georgia's size tonight. The problem is I don't know how Missouri does that without Tillman. Because Kobe Brown, he's 6'7", but he's not a post-up player. Mitchell Smith and Parker Brown are tall, but they aren't guys that can sit down on the low block and take an entry pass very often and, go up. And, Missouri has a height advantage. But, again, Mitchell Smith and Parker Brown just aren't – they're not Tillman. That's not their game. So I think Missouri's size advantage, honestly, is probably mitigated in this game. I think it's much more about the guards. Really, on both sides, it's pretty simple. Keep the opposing guards out of the lane. if Missouri sits and watches Severe Wheeler get in the lane like it did Sharif Cooper, then Georgia's got a chance to beat him. But if Pinson and Drew Smith can keep Wheeler out of the lane, they're okay. Same thing on the other end. If Pinson and Drew Smith are getting in the lane all the time against Georgia, then Georgia's going to be in a lot of trouble, and he's in for a long night. Grayson says if we win out the rest of the year, could finish a 4 seed. Yeah, I agree, but I think that's what it takes. And like David says, the problem is this team hasn't been consistent enough to win out with this schedule, and that's true. And look, that doesn't make them unusual. That makes them very similar to a lot of college basketball teams. But I fell into this trap after the Alabama game. I started looking and saying, at Ole Miss, like that's a winnable game. Arkansas at home, you've already beat them. I said Missouri's got a lot of wins coming up, and they promptly went out and dropped the first two. So I'm not gonna do that business. This is a team. Just go beat the teams you should, and then see. And tonight and the next game are a team they should beat. These are games that, again, they don't help you, but you have to win. These are the no upside games. I mean, you beat them, hey, good for you, move on. If you don't beat them, though, then all of a sudden, they start causing you a whole lot more problems. So these are the type of games you hate to play, the games that just they can hurt you far, far more than they can help you. So SEC standings, Bama's 12-1. Look, they've got the league won. LSU and Arkansas are up next at 8-4. Florida's 6-4 and never plays basketball anymore. Tennessee 7-5, Missouri 6-5, and Ole Miss sitting there at 7-6. And if Missouri loses tonight, they're 6-6, which, then they're only a game ahead of Kentucky, only a game ahead of Georgia. So, you lose this, you're really nose that. You've gone from 2nd to 7th in a heartbeat in these standings, and that's not where you want to be. But you win tonight, then, you're 7-5. You're tied with Tennessee for 5th, basically, right behind Florida. The different number of games is kind of tough to assess exactly where you're at. But Florida's at Arkansas tonight, so one of those teams is going to lose. Either Arkansas is going to be 8-5 or Florida's going to be 6-5. So theoretically, Missouri could be in a tie for 4th pretty easily by the end of the night. Lot to shake out. I think it's a pretty obvious divide between the top half of the SEC and the bottom half. You got Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, and Ole Miss. That's the top half of the league. And then you go gap, and then you got Kentucky, Georgia, Auburn, Mississippi State, South Carolina, A&M, Vandy. The gap is between 7 and 8. There's a gap between 1 and 2, obviously, but then 2 through 7, I think on any given night, could finish 2nd or could finish 7th, and then you got that gap from 8th to 14th. Missouri's goal, obviously, a couple weeks ago, I didn't think Ole Miss was in this picture, but now Ole Miss is in this picture. What you've got is 6 teams fighting for 3 spots. It's LSU, Arkansas, Florida, Tennessee, Mizzou, and Ole Miss. 3 of those teams are going to get double byes. 3 of them are not. Sam Smith points out the SEC just isn't that good this year. Tennessee's inconsistent. Kentucky is bad. Florida's average. I agree. Missouri's inconsistent. Arkansas's inconsistent. SEC's got one team that's got a chance to be a top 2 seed. Everybody else is hoping maybe to find a way to get to a 4. And that includes Tennessee, which I never would have thought. And Zach's asking about the double bye in the SEC tournament. Yeah, they definitely have a shot at that. It's going to come down to tiebreakers. They've got to win the right games. Kurt's asking about Torrence Watson. Yeah, we talked about him earlier. Be interesting to see. I don't think he's going to get 25 minutes like he did on Saturday, but I do think he earned more minutes, certainly with that effort. Shannon says, I've never complained all season about this Mizzou team. If you told me before the season we were ranked number 20 and had 3 top 10 wins, I'd be celebrating. That's a good way to look at it, and I agree, but also, 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, we were sitting here talking about a team that, hey, can they play their way into a 3 seed? Maybe could they possibly challenge Bama in the league? So I think it's okay to adjust expectations as the season goes along. And those expectations got a little higher, and then all of a sudden, hey, you got knocked down. Case says, am I crazy to think Tennessee might still be the best team in the SEC and expect them to go farthest in the tourney? I don't think they're the best team, but yeah, they could go the furthest in the tournament because they're tested. They've been in those games. They play a style that helps. You're always worried about Alabama. Like if you just one day where Alabama goes 5 for 29 from 3-point range, they're going to get beat in the tournament. And that includes maybe in the first round. Now I don't think Bama's going to lose in the first round, but if they run into the wrong team on the wrong day, they could. And I know you can say that about anybody, but the style Alabama plays lends itself to a little more variance, I think. So I could see Tennessee being the team that goes the furthest in the tournament, but I can't say they're the best team. I mean, Alabama's 17-5 and 12-1. Tennessee's 14-5 and 7-5. I mean, against the same competition, Alabama's been better, including at least one win over Tennessee, and they might have swept them. Let's see. They beat them 71-63, and that's the only time they play this year. So, I mean, they did sweep them, but it was only one game. So, give me 1 minute. We are going to dial up Mitchell Forty here and get his thoughts as we kind of finish up here. 13 minutes left until we head to tip-off of Mizzou and whoever they play, Georgia. Mitch, what's going on, man?
Not too much. Just preparing for the game. How's the show been so far?
It's been very exciting, very active. Good questions, good comments. Acceptable answers. But the main theme to me is this is just a game Missouri can't afford to lose. Like this is the game you hate playing because winning it doesn't help you and losing it kills you.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. And it's not just from a resume standpoint right now. It's momentum, I mean, each of the last two losses, the one last Wednesday was pretty bad. But, by itself, like you lose at Ole Miss. Okay. Obviously how it happened wasn't great, but some of us kind of saw that coming as a possibility. And then you go to overtime against Arkansas, lose without Tillman and without really your other two most productive post players. Okay. But you start getting to the area where, we're talking 3 losses in a row, they could dip down as far as like 7th in the SEC standings. I mean, that's where you're talking about the worry that this thing could kind of go off the rails. So I do think it's important, for Missouri to take advantage of the schedule lightening up a little bit this week to just kind of get some of that mojo back.
Yeah, that and the SEC standings, I just kind of ran through it. Basically now Ole Miss has joined this group. You've got 6 teams fighting for 3 spots. And a double bye is still Missouri could be tied for 4th by the end of the night, depending on what happens. So that's not as out of reach as I think people feel like it is right now. But to do that, you can't go losing to Georgia and A&M and South Carolina. And we had Anthony Dasher on earlier, and I mean, to listen to him talk, I'm not sure Georgia should even show up, honestly. I think Georgia's just done. They did give up, I believe I said the official number was 612 points to Alabama on Saturday.
Okay.
They're not very good on defense.
They are not very interested in playing defense. But here's the thing: if you look at their season so far, they only win if they can hold the opponent under 75 points or something like that. I forget. I think the exact number was 75. So it's a bad combination where they play bad defense, but they cannot win shootouts.
So 115 is not under 75, correct?
No, I think that's slightly over.
Okay, I'm going to guess that Missouri doesn't score 115 tonight, especially without Tillman. It's too bad for Missouri, too, that this is the game he's missing because, this would be a matchup where you would think you could get him back going again.
Yeah, I would think so, too. I mean, they don't have a ton of, shot blocking presence or interior presence. I mean, Tumani Kamara is an okay scorer, but I don't think he's known as any sort of a, defensive dynamo or anything like that. So, yeah, I do think this is a game where he could get, kind of his rhythm back. But I also do think that this is a decent matchup for Missouri's guards to kind of, get going. I mean, Arkansas plays really good defense, especially when they don't have to worry about helping off of Jeremiah Tillman. Georgia, has allowed teams to shoot very well inside the arc, doesn't block shots very well. And I mean, last year against Missouri basically got to the rim at will against them. I think Xavier Pinson and Drew Smith both had 16 points. So, I think if those two guys could have a good game, I think that would, at least help kind of reestablish the offense to where this team wants it to be.
Am I wrong to have some concern about the matchup with Severe Wheeler?
No.
I said he's the closest thing this league has to Sharif Cooper, I think.
Yeah, he is. I agree. He's not quite Sharif Cooper, and he probably doesn't have
Right.
quite the same level of talent around him. But him and that freshman, I think his name's like, I want to say it's DK Johnson, but I
You
think I
can
might be
say it's
wrong.
whatever you want to say it is because I have no
Yeah.
idea what it is.
Yeah, maybe it's KD Johnson. I don't know. It's two letters and then a normal last name. Um, he's been playing well lately. He's a top 50 freshman or top 60 freshman out of Atlanta who just recently got cleared by the NCAA like 10 games ago. He's scored 20 plus each of the past couple games. Him and Wheeler both do the majority of their damage inside the 3-point arc, and Missouri has struggled at times to stay in front of guys, guards like that, and you've seen them kind of like against Arkansas overcommit to help that, and then give up cuts and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, like I think this will be kind of a high scoring game because I do think there's a good chance those guys will be able to get going a little bit against Missouri's defense.
Yeah, I think it's. I just said a couple minutes before I called you. Like, it's real simple on both ends. It's about keeping the other guys out of the paint. And
Yeah.
whichever team does that better is going to win. By the way, it is KD Johnson, a 6'1", 190
Okay.
freshman.
Okay, that was pretty close.
Yeah, I've never heard of him, but good for you for knowing about him. So pop quiz. Do you know what Tom Crean's SEC record is at Georgia?
It's not good. I know that.
He's been there he's been there for 49 SEC games. I'll give you the number.
49. I'm gonna guess he is like 18-31.
12-37.
Ooh, wow.
I mean,
even worse than I thought. I thought I was going a little low.
Dreadful. I looked it up.
Yeah.
I looked it up this morning before I talked to Anthony Dasher, and like his best season is not as good as Mark Fox's worst season. And it's not like he took over a train wreck of a program. I mean, Georgia went 7-11 in the SEC in Fox's last year.
Yeah, and he had the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, and Severe Wheeler's a good player, and I don't quite get why it hasn't worked at all. And I mean, Dasher said he's safe. I think he's safe as long as Kirby's still coaching well. Like, I don't think Georgia really knows they're playing this game tonight, but Georgia fans.
Right.
But I mean, like, I would have been okay with Missouri hiring Crean, and he's a pretty good coach, and it seems like he's been recruiting well, and they've just been awful.
Yeah. I mean, I've always thought he was a solid coach. I mean, like what he did with Marquette was impressive. He had some decent years at Indiana after digging them out of an absolute grave. But yeah, it has not worked at all. And he's recruited pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, talking about having the number 1 pick, but yeah, it just has not translated to wins. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know enough. It's not like I follow Georgia basketball that closely, even though Tom and I are close personal friends.
Yeah, I know you guys are tied. He'll be disappointed not to see you this year. Georgia Rebel points out three of Tom Crean's SEC wins are against Ole Miss, which is Missouri might take that. They've only beaten Ole Miss 3 times total.
Missouri, every time they go to the state of Mississippi, it ends in disaster.
At least they didn't get COVID this time.
Yeah. That's true.
T-Rise guessed that Crean was 0-49, so he was on the other side of you. He underestimated Tom Crean.
I was closer.
But I said, I said, like, I think it's a perfect example of a program just not understanding who they are. Like, Mark Fox did all right there, and I guess maybe, hey, it was a little stale. It was time to move on to somebody a little more exciting. But it's a great example of the splash hire isn't always the good hire. I mean,
for sure.
I think it made a lot of excitement. I think Tom Crean's opening statement, actually, when he took the job, just ended like 12 minutes ago. Because he I remember his first day, he made a 23-minute opening statement, which I would not have transcribed. I would have thrown in the trash and said, I'm never covering this guy again. But, like looking back, hey, maybe Mark Fox wasn't terrible. But
right. Yeah.
I don't know. This I said at the beginning, I don't want to speculate like how long Tillman's gone. We don't know, and we want to be clear. We would never shame a kid for leaving to be with his family and all that, and whatever choice he makes is, and when he's ready to come back, he comes back. But I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. I was talking about this earlier. Somebody was asking about Torrence Watson, and during the game on Saturday, did you realize that Javon Pickett had only played 8 minutes?
I kind of did, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, just being there and I kind of noticed. I mean, mainly I noticed that they were running out of players because Kobe Brown stopped playing and Pickett wasn't playing at all in the second half. So yeah, I did notice, but I don't know. I think I think the ideal situation for Missouri is, Pickett to get back to healthy and playing his, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes. And then you throw Mark Smith out there for a few minutes. You throw Torrence Watson out there for a few minutes, and whichever one misses fewer shots early on, you keep him out there in that kind of 3 spot.
I agree, but that kind of leads. So you mentioned you get Pickett back to being healthy, which brought up the point I made earlier. And look, I don't know. I understand. The doctors say when he can or can't play. And Konzo, but I said we've seen this a few times in 3 years, I think, where the doctors say a kid can play, and Konzo tosses him out there, and then all of a sudden, a couple games later, he plays a little less. And then this thing lingers for 3 weeks. And I just wonder if Konzo is so much, hey, look, I'm about toughness, sprained ankle. If you can run and the doctor says you can play, you're going to play. And then it leads to something that if you just would tell Pickett, look, we're going to try to beat A&M in South Carolina without, or Georgia and A&M without you, whoever they play, I don't even know. But we're going to try to win 2 games without you because we need you at Florida, we need you for LSU, and we need you for the postseason. I wonder if sometimes the toughness and if the doctor says you can play leads to injuries maybe lasting a little longer than they otherwise would.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I don't know. You kind of have to go back and look at individual cases. And we're not in the room, but I don't know. I remember Jeremiah Tillman tried to play through his foot before they, discovered it was a stress fracture. Did that happen because he played through it, or was it there the whole time and they didn't notice? I don't know. But that has happened. I think similar thing happened with Mark Smith with one of his injuries. He's had a couple. So that's a good point. And definitely, I don't know. I mean, something to monitor at a minimum. I don't think we'll ever have anyone just tell us that's happening.
And I'm just still not sure that Saturday was about health with Pickett because he played 18 minutes on Wednesday and he was in the game for the most important defensive possession of the night. So if it's about health, he's not in the game for that possession.
Right. No, that was weird to me. That was actually the single thing that kind of befuddled me most coming out of that game was why they put him in for that possession when he hadn't played in 15 minutes of game time, and then he promptly got.
If Pinson fouls out, he fouls out. So what?
Right. Yeah, there's a minute left. Yeah. That kind of made no sense to me. That was the one thing I really came away questioning from that game. So I don't know. We'll see. By the way, one other thing, speaking of health, Kobe Brown's apparently fine because he's in the starting lineup tonight. So just
cramps,
FYI.
They have gone away since Saturday. So, okay, we got 45 seconds till tip off. So what'd you pick in the prediction this morning?
I was fairly bullish on Missouri. I don't remember the exact margin. I want to say I had Missouri 84-75 or something like that.
Okay, I was going to go 80-72. So. Okay. We'll see. We'll both probably be wrong, and I'll probably be listening to angry people on the postgame show. So,
sounds about right.
All right. Thanks, Mitch. Have a good one, man.
Yep. Enjoy.
All right. So, Mitchell Forty, appreciate him joining us. Appreciate all you guys joining us. And it is 5:59 and 37 seconds. And what that means is tip-off's 20 seconds away. So, as Grayson says, it is game time. Time to get out of the midweek game slump. So, you guys enjoy the game. I'm going to watch it. Mitch has you covered on the site. We'll be back with Konzo's postgame and the Burger Smokehouse postgame show after Mizzou and Georgia. Tipping off now on SEC Network.